Hello, Dr. Mark.
Hi, how are you, Amir?
I'm doing well. Hope it's been a long time since we've met last year,
Yeah,
and I guess this interview will be interesting for a lot of social enterprises and social entrepreneurs.
yeah, and hopefully entrepreneurs in general.
Yeah, definitely. So first of all, and before we get started, I would like from you to give us a brief about yourself so everybody can know with whom we are talking today.
Yeah, so I'm a serial entrepreneur. Had my first company in Los Angeles, California. It was a heavy equipment rental company. Had a successful exit in 2003, and then started a nonprofit in Florida. Uh, During starting that nonprofit in Florida, I decided to start a coffee company with a social mission that it would ethically source the coffee, it would be environmentally responsible, and 100% of the profits would go to local and global empowerment charities. Uh, uh, I've been doing that for 15 years, and about 5 years ago, Florida State University invited me to become a faculty member to teach social entrepreneurship. So I've been doing that for the past 5 years. Last year, as Amir mentioned, that we got to meet up in Boston at Babson University during the entrepreneurship forum. So it's really cool to be here.
Yeah, thank you. And definitely, we're having a great value today on board with this interview. First, I would like from you, as you have been saying your experience in the social enterprise field, how can we really define social entrepreneurs or social enterprises, comparing them to corporate social responsibility initiatives, let's say?
Right, and thanks for the question. So, I like to define social entrepreneurship as finding market solutions or commercial solutions to social or environmental problems. Uh,
Yeah.
that's probably to me the in the purest sense what it is. But the reality is, as you mentioned, there's corporations are really thinking about entrepreneurship or commerce in a different way and adding different corporate responsibility measures and things like that. So a lot of times with my students and when people ask me this question, what's the differentiator? Is a company that gives some money to a charity, are they a social enterprise? Uh, uh, or are they a commercial enterprise? So what I would say is commercial enterprises, traditional for-profit companies that give, some money to charity or do some corporate responsibility type things. Those are good things to do, but I don't think that necessarily makes them a social enterprise. And the reason I don't think they're a social enterprise uh, is that most time they're doing it as a response to market pressure or employee pressure versus it being a core value of the corporation. So you see companies like Coca-Cola adding different corporate responsibility measures into their enterprise, but the reality is they're doing that because it's good business. That Pepsi and other beverage companies are taking a piece of their market, or they're losing good employees to more corporately responsible companies because they don't have these measures. So, where I would say a social enterprise, their core reason for being is to create positive social or environmentally or environmental change. And of course, there's a whole gamut in between
Absolutely.
the two, but that's how I would differentiate it. Like what's the true motivation? on the surface, both have to be profitable. They both have to be sustainable. But at its core, is the company willing to take less monetary reward in order to benefit their community or the environment? And is that a core principle of the organization?
Okay, so let me take it further a little bit. If I need to ask what comes first, it's the idea where entrepreneurs come with an idea and then add a social impact value on it, or there is a certain social need out there and they generate the idea based on that need.
Yeah. So, what we like to say at the Jim Moran School of Entrepreneurship is don't tell me your idea, tell me the problem you want to solve.
Yeah,
And so I think it all starts for an entrepreneur is there's lots of great ideas, but what problem are you solving for your customer? And you got to do, and can you monetize it? Can you turn a profit at doing it? So number one, I would say that a traditional company or traditional entrepreneur would start with the problem of the consumer. Can they make it faster, cheaper, or better, right? And deliver that product or service with a better value proposition than their competitors. Where I think a social entrepreneur would actually think about the beneficiary first and think, how can I change an existing market to benefit society or benefit or make a more environmentally responsible environment. So, the tricky thing is they both have to make a profit. But I would say that your traditional entrepreneur is going to start with a problem of a consumer, where a social entrepreneur is going to start with the problem of society or environment.
okay. You spoke about monetizing the idea itself.
Right.
And here I would like to ask you where are the industries that a social enterprise can succeed more in? Is there any specific industry that is booming right now?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think corporate responsibility can be an indie industry. I think for social entrepreneurs that uh, there's different ways to make a social or environmental impact. Uh, like one of my favorite social entrepreneurs that a lot of entrepreneurs don't think about at him as a social entrepreneur is Elon Musk.
Yeah.
So Elon Musk, made hundreds of millions of dollars or more in PayPal and had a successful exit. And he could have started another company, but he cared about environmental issues. And at least in the United States, there was a real push toward lowering emissions in vehicles. And most people were trying to force people into electric cars that nobody wanted to drive, basically glorified golf carts. And what Elon Musk did was instead of trying to pass laws or uh, uh, force people somehow through government agencies to drive electric cars, he he turned the whole industry on its head and said, I'm going to build electric cars that are better than any other car that's out there, and people are going to want to drive this. So he found a market solution to the problem of CO2 emissions and things like that. So, I think, an entrepreneur looking at, it could be any industry. For me, it was coffee, right? I looked at unfair trade practices, really poor farming principles, and said, hey, here's an opportunity to treat farmers fairly. Uh, so I don't know if there's a, cars, coffee, agriculture, manufacturing, that I don't know if there's a specific industry. It seems like, probably the easiest industry is finding where people are being exploited, and using the supply chain as a way to bring empowerment to people. But also, we see in the case of Elon Musk with Tesla and Solar City. I don't know if you're familiar with Solar City, but it's
Yeah.
essentially, yeah, Solar City, that just kind of like looking at what's being done and say it can be done uh, in a way that is better than the previous way that the industry is doing it. So I think it's wide open to, long answer for a short, long answer for what could be a short answer is yeah, it's wide open. I think it could be anything, and we're only limited to the entrepreneur is only limited to his or her capacity to envision a different world than we're currently living in.
Even if it's long, it's nice to hear from you that it's not limited to a certain industry, and it's opening a wide spectrum for entrepreneurs to think about a lot of industries, not just focusing on a certain area that they feel it might be more profitable somehow. And let's say taking an example of Elon Musk as a role model in this entrepreneurial field, how nowadays investors are looking at the social impact created by certain entrepreneurs. It's becoming a driver for them to invest. How do you assess that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think investors are looking obviously primarily for a return on their investment. And I think what corporations and venture capitalists and angel investors and seed investors are realizing that social responsibility and environmental responsibility is good business. So, when if there's two companies out there, and let's say a coffee company, because I know coffee, and one company is offering a cup of coffee for $2.50, but they're exploiting farmers and they're using tons of chemicals and hurting the environment. And then there's the other company that is ethically sourcing their coffee and it's organic. If the consumer if they're right next to each other, most consumers are going to pick coffee that's ethically sourced and environmentally friendly. So it's in pure capitalistic terms, it's a competitive advantage or a key differentiator to have these socially responsible aspects in your company. So what I believe that there's an evolution of business happening, that faster, cheaper, better is no longer good enough. That in a world that is shrinking, where a guy in Florida and a guy in Lebanon can easily connect, right, and have a conversation, and lots of that we can easily find out, if companies are exploiting people, if they are having superfluous activities and stuff like that. And we as consumers, or most consumers, would just rather do business with people that are treating other people fairly, right? Or not destroying the environment to make a few executives wealthy. So I do think that that's the future of commerce.
So it's more about a change in consumer behavior, as you are saying. So
Yeah,
even the investor is looking from the eye of a consumer, how he would uh, let's say, look at this product, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think, going back to Elon Musk, and I don't know if you saw the product reveal for Solar City, one of the best product reveals I've ever seen. But he kept on saying, you know, that his solar tiles on the roof are cheaper than traditional ones, that they're more durable, and they have a return on investment because they're solar panels. So he's like, why would you pick anything else? So as an investor, I'm not an investor in Solar City, but if I was, I'm looking at that and I'm like, yeah, would I, if I'm going to invest in roofing materials or a roofing company, do I want to invest? Do I believe that this company, Solar City, is going to outperform a traditional company that's using petroleum products to cover the roof? And as an investor, I would say I'm going to bet the future is on solar,
Solar.
and I'm going to bet that it's on Solar City. So I think savvy investors understand that that's where the markets are moving, and companies that are using technology to empower people, like blockchain is being used a lot in supply chains, in just keeping transparency in the supply chain. That companies that adopt these things are, I believe, are going to be more successful, and investors are going to want to get in earlier with companies that are looking forward to using these technologies for a competitive edge.
Yeah, that's right. I will move forward to ask you something about what, from your own experience, could be the secret sauce for entrepreneurs to succeed in social enterprise. If you
Yeah,
have any
I-
kind
you
of,
know, uh, so I think it's important that each entrepreneur finds out what their superpower is. Um, I think different entrepreneurs have superpowers, and I think entrepreneurial teams are that are well balanced and put together are super important. Like I'm an activator, and I like casting vision and raising money, but I'm terrible at uh, details, and they're just boring to me. So, my superpower is casting a compelling idea or vision of the future that instills passion in investors and other team members. Uh, so I think, just knowing that, but also I've never seen an entrepreneur, like, I think a key ingredient to every entrepreneur, no matter what their superpower is tenacity. That, entrepreneurship is hard, and nothing, well, not nothing, but very few things go the way you think they're going to go. And there's never enough time, there's never enough money, there's not enough people, and there's a whole bunch of people who have heavily invested in the status quo. And you trying to change the status quo, you know, doesn't make you very popular, and because you're trying to take market share from other people. So uh, all the forces of the economy are against the entrepreneur. And I think somebody who can get up every day and fight those battles and get knocked down and get up again and get knocked down and get back up again repeatedly is the one key trait that I think is the secret sauce of being an entrepreneur. Because, you know, people get tired of knocking people down who keep on getting back up.
um, definitely there are a lot of questions, but I will end my questions with what are some highlights that you would like to give to entrepreneurs listening to us today?
Yeah, I think that entrepreneurship is the future. I think we live in the age of entrepreneurship, that uh, our worlds are getting so much smaller, and the ability to connect with different people in a global economy is easy. Um, I think entrepreneurship really up until the last 10 years was a lot of times a luxury of wealthy people, and uh, the internet has really equalized it, and it's super cool that, like, if really it's taken away all excuses, that if you have an idea and you want to market it, you can find a way, and and you don't have to ask permission from a big corporation or somebody. We don't live in a permission-based society anymore, and we can we really, like, if we want to bet on ourselves, maybe we won't win, but there's a chance that we will. And I think that that's one of the coolest things about being an entrepreneur and living in this day and age.
I don't know if you agree with me. I consider entrepreneurship nowadays becoming a way of living rather than just about ideas and startups.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that uh, there's been so many examples of basically companies starting in somebody's garage, or somebody's mom's basement or something like that,
Exactly.
and they validate, and the reality is that there's a lot of capital out there that's looking for the next Uber or Apple or all these different kind of things, and I think that most investors, they don't, there's they're smart enough to know that doesn't just come from middle-aged white guys, who live in the United States. That they're looking and saying, you know what, there's a lot of smart people in Lebanon who are coming up with really interesting solutions to problems. And again, with blockchain and things like that, there's ways to move capital like we've never seen before,
Yeah.
and it's just, we live in a very exciting time for entrepreneurship.
Yeah, definitely. Uh, Before we end, I hope that we'll have you maybe later on in one of my workshops. Maybe we have direct conversation with entrepreneurs, so they can have a lot of questions to ask you as well.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Uh, in the meantime, I would like to thank you, having you from Florida today, sharing these insights and your valuable experience.
Awesome. Well,
Thank,
thank you so much for having me.
thank you, and I wish you a nice day.
Hey, thanks.
Bye. Bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.